Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Shadow Box. I am Carlise, your host. I am your grief coach and your shadow work guide. Today with me, I have Griscelle and Brooks. This is a lovely family that has gone through some things that we wouldn't really wish on our worst enemies. And today, I just want to make sure everyone understands that this podcast platform is for you to tell your raw stories. There's no judgment, and this is a safe place for everyone to get out whatever is on their hearts through their grieving journey. So I put that disclaimer out there for everyone who is listening. So we're going to start with Griscelle. And Griscelle is a seasoned professional with over 20 years of experience leading transformational projects for large corporations. Following the loss of her daughter, she channeled her grief into purpose, becoming a speaker on resilience and grief, and recently launching a business, Princess and Papa, to honor her daughter's memory. As a mother of two Earthside boys, I love how you put that, and an angel baby, Griscelle is passionate about inspiring families to keep going through life's challenges. A devoted advocate for mental and physical health, she believes in living a purposeful and meaningful life. In her spare time, Griscelle enjoys drawing, cooking, and staying active through fitness. Moving on to Brooks. Brooks is her lovely husband. Brooks is an accomplished corporate executive with 2 decades of experience in the construction industry. He is also a certified professional coach through iPEC, specializing in grief support, particularly for fathers. After facing personal loss, Brooks became a strong advocate for self-care and has utilized innovative treatments such as TMS to navigate his PTSD. With a passion for helping others, Brooks combines his professional expertise with his certification in Improv to bring support and empowerment to grieving families. In his downtime, he enjoys carpentry projects, staying fit, and traveling with his family. Welcome you guys into the Shadow Box.
Thanks for having us, Carlise.
Awesome. I thank you guys for being here and the willingness to come inside and share your story with us. So let's go ahead and get started. And either of you can start. We can talk about, what brought you into the world of grief?
So in December of 8th of 2022, so recent anniversary, we lost our daughter, Evangeline, Anacker. She was 10 months old. Her passing came unexpectedly. I was at a work trip, and it was the first work trip that I had taken since I had my son 2 years prior. And I came home from the work trip and only to be greeted by my husband and my parents at the airport. And initially I was like, oh, they're here to pick me up. How fun. And then I saw the look on their faces of something devastating happen. And those looks are just forever ingrained in my memory. To this day, it's something that I relive every day. And then he told me the news, and it's something that is so surreal. You have this out-of-body experience when somebody's telling you such a drastic news that you don't believe it. And I didn't believe it for the longest time. Cried on the way home, right? But still just cried to just cry, not realizing what actually happened, that she was no longer with us. And so shortly after, I learned that I was pregnant with my son, Evan, about a month later, and went through pregnancy grieving. So again, the ending cycle of grief and trying to find joy still haunts me. But that's how we entered into this grieving journey. I've never experienced something prior to this as drastic, right? I've always had a happy childhood, happy life. And so this was just so impactful for me personally because at first I didn't know what to do. And so this hit me pretty hard. It continues to hit me hard, but that's how we become parents of an angel baby.
Yeah. And Brooks, your story is a little different in the sense of grief was not foreign to you. So go ahead and tell us about your finding out and how you even had processed it to even get to the point of being able to tell Griscelle what had happened.
Yeah, it's it's hard. Even I guess I really don't vocalize it a lot. I think about it every day, multiple times. But we had gone to bed the night before, and we were excited. She was coming back. Things were going to get back to normal. I don't remember what plans we had, but I assume it involved a park or something fun for the kids. And Griscelle had been the one that in the mornings would get up and get Evangeline her milk. And so this was new for me. And this was the third day in a row of doing it. I still think about, sometimes it feels like the last time I was happy, but going up the stairs, I was excited to go get her because the times before when I would turn the sound machine off and I'd walk in, she'd be standing up waiting on me. And that wasn't the case. And I think back on it now of just the feeling I've never had before. Just the entire body just going emotionless, but all the emotions at the same time. Realizing what had happened. I could tell as soon as I walked in. And it's tough. I grew up. My father, he passed when I was 20, but he was in a nursing home growing up. When I was about 3 or 4, he had 4 or 5 major strokes, and so I think I struggle a lot now with how to display grief, how to convey emotions in that. I think I built a lot of safeguards when I was younger, ways of being able to process and handle being different, having a different scenario, and whatever a 3 or 4-year-old would go through, not having their parent around, the next day.
Yeah. And as we go through this process, Brooks, I want you to breathe. And, something that grief does too is it grabs a hold of you. It puts you in a chokehold, pretty much. And we are used to just holding our breath as we're telling our story. But I want you to focus on just taking a deep breath and knowing that this is your safe place, and that even if you are to cry and lose it a little bit, it's going to be okay. Okay? And so I don't want you just to hold it in. I want you to take your breath, and I want you to breathe. Okay? So now that we've kind of went over the story of how Evangeline, and that's such a beautiful name, how she came to pass away, what was the diagnosis surrounding her passing?
So it was about 3 or 4 months later. I was on the way to take Otto to school. we got a call from the detective, and it was he had told us that they had come up with acute broncho pneumonia.
And Griscelle, you had a different take on that. That's not a diagnosis that you were happy with at all. Tell me about that.
No, I don't believe it. And I don't know if it's still me in this denial state that she's not here, or a mother's instinct. But when I left for my trip, she was in healthy shape. She never showed any signs of illness. She did not cough. She did not have a fever. And 2 weeks prior, we had taken her to the pediatrician because she had an ear infection, of which they gave her medication to combat any other illnesses, including pneumonia. And so for me, I just find it hard to believe that was the case. And now I can do an investigation and open it up, but at the end of the day, it's not going to change the end result that she's not here, and will only open up wounds that are already so deep. And so I'm at peace with myself, knowing that in my heart, I know that that's not what happened to her. But I have a different perspective. And I don't blame anybody. I never have, for what happened. I don't know. I just don't feel like that's what happened to her. I know my husband thinks differently, but I just feel it in my heart that that's not what transpired.
And Brooks, what is your take on it?
I just remember, I think it was the first day Griscelle was gone. I heard her cough, and it was a cough I had not heard before. You know, a lot of times with the infants or toddlers, it's a very wet top level cough. It's not as deep. And she had a deeper cough, and I remember being taken aback by it. And but she was acting normal. She didn't have a fever. She didn't have anything wrong. And I said, you know, I'll wait and see if it gets any worse or what's going on. You know, maybe it was just something that I experienced wrong. She did it a time or two again, but again, it didn't lead to fever or anything else. And so, you know, I think for me, I've always been a fixer, always tried to solve for things. And I definitely, as part of the steps of trying to grieve and process, you know, I definitely resent having not taken her to the doctor.
Yeah. And I think that's a normal thought process coming from the man that you are, because men grieve differently. The thought processes are different, and you're supposed to be, by societal norms, you're supposed to be the protector, and you know, you're the one who kind of umbrellas over everything. And so for you to take on that responsibility of, I should have known, I should have acted upon this, it's quite normal. It's quite normal. And that's why I think that, you know, as I was reading through your bio, of you really diving into the thought processes of men when they're grieving and when they have traumatic things going on with them, because men need to speak with men, so that they can feel heard and understand in a way that women and even professionals aren't able to speak to that space. You know, but I love that you're doing that, because even with that, men have to know that they're human too. And yes, we see the superheroes and we see the villains and the superhero and we see all of that, but you know, things happen, and we can't save the world, right? And even including in that, we can't always be there to save our children either. You know, and that's a hurtful thing as a man, as a woman, as parents. Yeah. Okay. So another thing I want to touch on with you too, Brooks, the treatment that you received when the investigation was going on and when they came to the house. Talk to us about that as well.
It was difficult. They separated me from Otto. So Otto woke up to a police officer in his bedroom and was in there for over an hour until another family member got here to be able to sit with him. And then a cop was watching me constantly as I was as raw as could be, you know, completely losing it, calling people, and you know, just treated like a criminal. You know, and I think trying to find the logic in all of it, because that's typically how I operate. I'm sure that the majority of the cases that the police go to, there is negligence, there is some type of bad actor involved, right? And that's what they're trying to surmise. And so that obviously didn't apply in my case. So I understand why it was the way that it was, but just it's the worst day of my life.
Yeah.
And it's just another day at work for them.
Yeah.
You know, and it showed. And it showed every day that I had to interact with them or the folks at the hospital or just really just any day ever since that day.
Yeah. And when you go through things of this nature too, I always say that grief has a way of, we'll talk about exposure here in a moment, but going into your purpose. Because had you not experienced what you experienced with the law enforcement and the investigation, you wouldn't know what that feels like. And so for you to be able to speak and maybe even write a letter to whoever is in charge of law enforcement, or, you know, whoever we can get the letter to, of saying how you guys handled this or how you handle situations of such wasn't warranted in that situation. Or maybe you guys should handle it in a different way as a person who's speaking, as a father speaking that was in this situation. Grief and loss and the way that it's handled gives voice to what's wrong. It gives voice to what needs to be, what light needs to be shed on certain things. And I believe that this is one of them. I had another client who lost her daughter to domestic violence, and the way that the college handled the situation when it was told to them, it wasn't, you know, it possibly could have saved her life, and that's a whole different scenario. But having her mother's voice now put into that space of now being able to change their guidelines and change their policies when they're coming into situations like that. And so that's where I think that, you know, down the line, if you choose to speak into that space, it would definitely be prevalent and impactful. Okay, Griscelle, do you have anything to say about that part of the story?
No, I wasn't particularly involved in it. He had handled most of the interactions. By the time I had gotten to the airport and landed, it was already too late for me to even see her at the hospital. They already had taken her to, I think, was it about an hour too late? Was I? Something like that. And I never got to say my goodbyes. But he managed everything from the hospital to the investigation to investigator. And so I wasn't really involved, but I saw him and his interactions and taking the lead in most of that and try to protect our family for what was to come.
Yeah. And there we have that partnership and that teammate in this unfortunate situation that you guys were facing. And that brings us around to how you guys have held each other together during this time of the year. So we have the holidays that came up. We have Evangeline's angelversary that's coming up. And then we also have her birthday that's coming up. Talk to me out of that space that you guys have been in here recently.
It's such an indescribable feeling to try to live every day for your family. You know, we have small children, for my husband, right? Knowing that they need me and trying to put a happy face on. And at the same time, in the back, just having this lingering, just sadness around all the holidays. Christmas, rolls around and you see, and I try my best not to compare our family to social media because I do think it's fake. But, you see a lot of, oh, we have to make Christmas magical and, the gifts and all these things. And as a mom, you want to give that to your children. You want to provide special moments that they grow up and have memories. And I just was so sad that I barely put a Christmas tree up. I think we put it halfway in December, in the middle of December. And it's such a drastic change for me, coming from somebody that just loved Christmas and celebrating it. I didn't get any new Christmas decorations. We took the kids to Disney for that a week before Christmas. Just to distract ourselves and do something different than staying home. We also, wanted to spend time with them, but they have a new ride at Disney World that's around the Princess and the Frog, which Evangeline is named after the Princess and the Frog movie. And so we wanted to capture that moment. But after that, we came home and it was Christmas and we barely, I think I forgot to even put out the milk for Santa. It was like just such and I know it's a small thing, but it's something that when your 4-year-old calls it out the next morning, oh, mama, we forgot the milk for milk and cookies with Santa. And it's like, oh, you're beating yourself up for something so minuscule, right? But trying not to make a big deal out of it because that wasn't a top priority. My top priority was trying to make sure I didn't cry every second of every day in the month of December, right? And the way that I managed through that was, and overcompensated, was an abundance of gifts. Like, we gave them so many presents that they opened up. I think it took them like 3 days to open them, but that was my way of giving them something that I truly could not give them, the thing that I wanted, which was their sister back. Let me give you something material, right? To in hopes of you capturing a memory for my lack of magicalness for Christmas. Her angelversary was, again, in December, on December 8th, and it's just the same infinite feelings of happiness, sadness, happiness, guilt, sadness, guilt, and just over and over. And then her birthday's coming up. She would have been 3 years old. What would she be doing? What would she look like? All those things just taken from us. Just trying to, be here for my children. But it's hard because you're trying to be in the moment and be happy and spend time with them. Our son Evan is a little ham bone right now, and he's into everything. And so we're trying to be in the moment. And as soon as you feel happiness, you get pulled back into reality of, oh, well, there's somebody missing here, right? And it's this constant cycle of happiness. Oh, but we can't be too happy. Or, oh, here's a memory. Oh, memories half missing, right? And so it's been, the past few months have been extra hard. I'm trying to navigate through that and just mentally exhausted. I made a comment to my husband a couple of days ago of like, it's so exhausting by the time it's like 8 o'clock. Like my brain is just drained that I have nothing left. And it's exhaustion of trying to be in the moment and be happy, but also trying to, not go crazy with what's going on in your head with the grief.
Yeah. And that emotional exhaustion is what you were giving those gifts in replacement of, and it's that correlation between your heart and your mind. Like your heart is broken, you're exhausted, but you still have your babies here, and you're like, I can't give you, I want to give you your sister. I even want to give you my attention, but I can't. And that is, I would only imagine that that's a heartbreak within itself, that you have other children that are pulling at you, but you don't have really anything left to give them. And I'm interested in knowing, and no one knows this quite yet, and I'm interested in knowing how long, if there's a how long, does it take to come back into that present and into that moment with your other children that are there, once you've lost one. And I've talked to many parents, and you guys are not outside of this spectrum where it's hard. They have their other children, but they cannot enjoy the holiday. They cannot get into the holiday because there's that one that's no longer there to share within the festivities. Brooks, how was your experience going into this month and last month?
Yeah, I think the thing I recognize the most is that it's not getting any easier. I remember what would have been her first birthday. We were all there, and it was tough. And I, as humans, you try and process how to get to the next step, right? Like how do you solve for what's in front of you, and thinking, is it going to be this way every year? Is it going to get any easier? When we went to our first grief group, there were a lot of folks that said the first year is actually the easiest. The second year is the hardest. And I would say I agree with that. You get far enough away from the event that the it's not fresh, right? Like it's you're able to process more than right there when it happens, and you start to recognize, something I've said to Griscelle a couple of times. It's everything from here on out is an asterisk.
Mm.
Every time we go to Disney, we'll have fun, asterisk, because she's not here. Every Christmas, it's the same thing, and so it's been a very difficult December. I think for me, when we had Otto, I remember our first Christmas, and Griscelle and I were there with him, and he can't open his presents. He's 9 months at the time, and we're helping him, and even rolling into the next Christmas, it was a similar event. But you start to build that joy, the stuff that folks talk about of remembering their kids opening their presents and the excitement, and especially the first few years, the excitement's the parents, right? Like you get to recreate the moments that your parents had with you. And it was the first time I had a lot of excitement about Christmas in a while. And now, asterisk, we gave our kids a bunch of presents and we got to play with them, and you're trying to muscle through the smile, but there's just that day, that feeling of it's still not right.
Yeah. Have you guys started to, or did you try this year to incorporate Evangeline in the Christmas spirit, so to speak, like a stocking or an ornament or anything of that nature?
Yeah, we put up her ornaments that she had gotten when she was here from her grandmother. We have a couple of stockings. Ornaments with her name on them. I had every intention of doing stockings, and I was going to put everybody's name on them, and I just didn't. We had 4 stockings that I had gotten before Evan. So for myself, Otto, and Evangeline, and my husband. And I didn't put those up because we were still missing. I mean, it's 5 of us. And I could not do it. Just to see that display of, her not being here. I just couldn't do it.
I know that's a lot, guys. I want both of you guys to take a deep breath on that, because that's heavy. That's a lot. When we talk about Evangeline, while you were going through the process of her loss, you also found out that you were pregnant. So now we're going to shift it a little bit, and we're going to start talking about, well, let's go back a little bit, because Otto was here as well, right? Okay. And tell me, after Evangeline passed, how did your relationship or your thought process shift with Otto?
Well, I think for me, Otto was coming up on 3 years old. So he was as active and as wild as he had been in his years here. And there was a sense of just let him be. We have life events that we're trying to navigate through, jobs, schedules. Hey, don't get on that. Hey, don't do this. It's dangerous. Hey, don't do that. And it was I just want him to be happy. I want him over there playing. I'm going to be around him and make sure that nothing happens. But the I guess the strictness of a parent, it kind of had faded.
Yeah. And I remember when we were talking, you were saying how close you and Otto were, and how that kind of stripped it away, that bond that you had with him kind of took a turn, so to speak. Can you speak to us about that?
Yeah, I'm the second of 5 boys, and we've all been very close with each other. I'm a good bit older than the 3 younger ones, and so I'd coached them in sports growing up because I was already out of high school, and so I'd always been really excited about having kids. So when we found out we were having a boy, I'm over the moon. And Griscelle, remember, I had a couple songs I wrote that I would sing them. I always called him my best friend. And I don't think I've said it since Evangeline passed. I put a lot of my energy into Otto because, he was my boy. Evangeline was Griscelle's girl, and I knew in time, those 2 things would change. In talking with my therapist, that's one of the things that he had mentioned was, it's not fair. Yeah, because as you plan out your life and you plan out these things, you, as a parent, you've got 20 to 24 years of pretty heavy involvement in your children's lives. And so looking on that is having neglected my time with her. Obviously, I can do that and dwell in that, and I have a lot. But I was supposed to have so much more time. But I think it was a lot. Doing the reflecting of the time while she was here, and spending so much more time with Otto because of that. And it's definitely taken its toll on me mentally.
Have you seen a shift in Otto's behavior or his closeness with you since you've kind of stopped calling him your best friend?
Otto's always been a really happy child, really energetic child. It was very beautiful to see how much he picked up on emotionally at such a young age. He could tell when we were upset, and he would come over to try and comfort us. I think about some of the things that I would hear Griscelle say to him, or I know that she would have said to him. And so there was one time where I was putting him down. It's a few months after Evangeline had passed, and just out of nowhere, he would always ask, "Where's Sissy? Where's Sissy?" And I don't even really think he knew what he was asking. He would just say it because it was just kind of a thing. And I started crying because I was in there in the bed with him, putting him down. He rolled over and he goes, "Oh, Papa, don't cry. It's okay. What's wrong? Tell me. What's wrong? Don't cry." And, it was just, he was barely 3. And to do that, it was, especially looking back on it now, it speaks to who he is and who he'll always be as such a sweet, genuine little boy.
Yeah. And when we think about that Otto of shadow, Otto is developing his own shadow now, because even though he was young when this happened, now he's in the world of grief. He's in the world of sadness. He understands what that is. And when the loss happens and the sense of grief is there, especially when you're a child, you learn how to caretake early. And so he's going to assume that caretaker role for probably the rest of his life, because he's learning how to navigate mom and dad's emotions, and where he kind of, is he more so now like, is he mischievous, or is he really just kind of a good kid, of what people would say a good kid?
I'd say he's a great kid. He just loves to play.
Yeah.
You see that childlike sense of wonder that's still in him. But also to the notion of what you said about him being a caretaker. We have a little mini kitchen in our kitchen, and all the little prop foods or whatever. And so Griscelle will be making dinner, and he goes in there and makes dinner too. And he always makes it a point to put the food out on the table that he made before we can eat the food that Griscelle has made.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he grows into being just the easy kid, so to speak, because he's seen so much emotion from you guys and that hurt from you guys, that it's grown in him early. I don't want my parents to be upset because of me. I don't want them to cry because of me. I don't want them to be sad because of me. So it's starting to sit in for him just to be an easygoing kid and make life a little easier for you guys. Because especially as he starts to grow up and realize what really happened, it's going to be like, I don't want to put that stress on my parents. He's probably really got to be that caretaker, cooking actual food and making you eat it. Griscelle, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, he's such a great kid. He's the first. And so obviously there's different feelings that come with having your first child, of, from a caretaker perspective, you want to make sure that he's okay. You put extra time and effort into making special foods for him. You have a very strict routine. You get the cutest outfits. And so he was able to experience that. I was able to experience that with him. And so he's very special to me. And to Brooks's point, seeing him and just transform into this little mini person, and his resiliency throughout all of this grief, for me is really inspiring. I look to him, and I know it's kind of it's a lot to put on a 3-year-old at the time, and now a 4-year-old, but I relied on him so much throughout my grieving journey to get me through the day. Of, hey, let's play, let's distract my mind, or even if it was me trying to correct him of not doing something right, or whatever it was, it was so helpful to me to be in that moment with him and get me out of the low that I was in. And so I'm eternally grateful for him, and I have just a special connection to him, and with him. And yeah, I just love that boy.
Yeah. And you guys had 2 different takes on Otto, because Brooks was more like, I'm going to shy away. It's too painful to be too close. And Griscelle, you kind of gravitated towards him. And that's a big difference. How did you guys navigate that within each other? Like, did you see, I'm quite sure that you've seen Griscelle gravitate towards and Brooke pull away. Did that create any sorts of ripples between the 2 of you?
No. For me, what I think what works well with us is we try to stay in each other's lanes, right? A lot of the times I've seen, you know, too much involvement in like, for example, stop telling your, my son how to do this, or to a spouse. And it doesn't, in my opinion, let them build their own connection. So my mindset is, let me take a step back and let my husband manage his relationship with his son, however that may be. Now,
Okay.
I'll get involved, whenever I feel strongly about something, right? But I kind of let them manage that, because I do think it's important that they have their own unique relationship. Right. And we also don't do, like, if he'll go and, hey, mommy, like, he'll ask my husband for something and he says no, he'll come to me. I never go against what my husband says. So we're always kind of around the same page of, if Papa says no, then it's no. Because that also kind of limits the animosity between a spouse, in my opinion, of,
Yeah.
I'm not going to go against what you said. And our child is going to know that what you mean is what you say, and it's important. And so we kind of go with that mindset when it comes to parenting. And so I don't think, yes, I've seen that there's changes with their relationship, but I have a feeling that I think their unique relationship will work itself out.
Yeah. And that's that aspect of trust. And I can't say that enough, of marrying the right person, to have to experience this sort of situation with, and trusting him to know that I know that he is not going to treat Otto wrong, but the relationship is going to adjust itself. And I trust my husband to be the man that he is, to be the father he is, to be the husband that he is. And I know that it's going to work out in the long run.
100%.
And to give him that room, and to give him that space to, like you said, to kind of rebuild that bond the way that he needs to navigate it. That's a sense of freedom, because who wants to have a brick on top of a brick on top of a brick when no one can barely breathe anyway, So it's like, I have to respect his grieving process just as he respects my grieving process, so that we can get through this together. But my biggest thing with you guys is that you never left each other's side, emotionally, physically. You're getting through it together. Yeah. So we have Otto, and now we find out that we're pregnant. So in the midst of Evangeline passing away, you find out that you're pregnant, and that was not that wasn't the best news. Go ahead and walk us through that.
Yeah, we found out I was pregnant, and it wasn't the best news in the fact that I wasn't ready. I was in shock. My body was in shock. There was a lot of concern about whether I had the mental capacity to have another child. There's lingering concerns about health. Oh my God, something's going to happen to him. And so there's a lot of grief, took a lot of that joy from me, of being a happy pregnant mother. It took a lot of the excitement of the newborn stage from me. it took a lot of that connection that I was to build with Evan. It took it from me. I was not able to connect with him at first. There was a lot of guilt on my part of, oh my God, I had a child so quickly, right after my daughter's passing. There was a lot of resentment initially towards my son of, why are you here? Why is she not here? And so these feelings of just an abyss of sadness, and while you're pregnant and while you're going through the infant stage is just so draining. And so, but you see him, and you, as he grew older, and as he started sitting up and kind of babbling, the bond of a mother and a child, is inevitable. And so, I was able to finally connect with him after, letting my guard down of, it's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. This is where we are, and trying to be there for him and seeing him grow has definitely helped me move forward through this journey.
Yeah.
As he's getting into things now, he's a little bit older, he's walking, he's, with his brother, wanting to do everything his brother does. I've come to terms that, to my husband's point, it's an asterisk, right? I see how they're wrestling as brothers now. And at first you have this happy moment of, oh my God, that's so cute. And an instant following of sadness of, oh my God, she's not here to play with them. But being in the moment with him and both boys, and just seeing them grow has helped me just snap out of it. Like, even if it's the mom or whatever it is that they're doing, it forces you to snap out of the thought process that you're in, to put you in perspective and where you are. So they have helped me tremendously. And Evan, has given me hope of what the future looks like. And so I'm also so grateful for him coming into our lives.
Brooks, what was your take on finding out that Griscelle was pregnant and that Evan was coming?
It was it's kind of exactly what you would expect. There was excitement in that, we were having another child. I know Griscelle and I had hoped for another girl. And even that's, it's just another one of these difficult things to try to navigate through and process. I spoke with a couple different folks that do their own type of grief counseling, and they've talked about having concerns, about having discussions with their kids when they're older about that they had a sibling, that sibling's gone, that they're not a replacement child. They are somebody that was wanted, somebody that was planned. It wasn't just because of that. And so there's always the concerns about that I think I know I had at that time. While she was pregnant, it was tough. Doing anything with a 18-month-old, 2-year-old at home, which is where Otto, 2 years old, was during that. It just added to the stress of trying to navigate the moment, of my wife's pregnant. Is she okay? What can we do to make her more comfortable inside of this situation, while being there for Otto. And oddly enough, we went in for an appointment because Griscelle has had high blood pressure with all 3 kids. And we didn't even have a bag packed or anything yet because he wasn't due for another month. And they decided to go ahead and induce. And we found out as he was coming out that there was a knot in the umbilical cord. It just wasn't cinched yet. And so, give it another week for him to have grown, less room in there. Knowing my wife, she may not have thought it was as big a deal. She would have said, I can power through this. I'm a strong woman. It's just a backache or it's something. We were very fortunate in the way that it did play out, so that he was born when he was, because it could have been another terrible experience for our family.
Yeah.
I think for me, I really just tried to be there, whether I was there or not mentally. I think for a lot of people, particularly men going through this, it's very hard to keep your emotions in check. And so for some, that means not dealing with the issue at all and leaving or abandoning, that component that you're supposed to bring to the table as a father. And so for me, that was my commitment to honoring her, was that, for Otto and for Evan, I was going to make sure that I was present, and in my best way to be both physically and mentally, but at least physically, so that the kids were there and they knew they had that safety.
Yeah. And I know that in that process of kind of separating yourself or creating a little distance between yourself and Otto, then here came Evan. And when we were talking before, I think that, that distance wanted to remain there with Evan as well. But like you said, like he's a daddy's boy. Like he doesn't let you out of his sight pretty much. And, that's the beautiful thing about bonding, because even though he is a little guy, he still feels that attachment. He still feels that sadness. He feels that space and that emptiness too. And a lot of the times, people, it's not that they are replacement babies or anything of that nature, but sometimes they do come to comfort that space, to comfort that space that you have, that has been so desolate for you and so painful for you. And even though when you fight it, they still come and they still sit in that space and you can't deny it. And that's a part of your healing. That's a part of the journey that you're going through. And as Otto sees that too, he's going to start to really incorporate that. And I think that it's not necessarily the conversation that you have about when you have babies, in between babies that pass away. I think if you come at it in a sense of, we're just a family. We are a family that has had loss. You have a sister that passed away, and she's obviously no longer here with us, but she is your sibling. She is our daughter. She's a part of the family. And the more that you incorporate her in the holidays and the Christmas, and, maybe they can make her little ornaments. Maybe there's some creative things that you guys could do when the holidays come around, and write a letter to her, put it in her stocking, sit around and read it to her, just somewhere where she can be incorporated in everything without the angst of it, if that makes sense, in that moment, because there's still going to be that angst, right? But one of the things that I'm really coming across, and that really came into my mind, when we lose someone, we lost that person. We lost the relationship to that person, to that child, to that sibling, to that parent. And now we have to grapple with, how do I continue a relationship with them now that they're gone? What does that relationship look like? And to a lot of people, that is impossible because they're not tangibly here. You can't hear their voice. You can't talk to them. You can't get their expressions from the things that you're saying. So how do I build this relationship now? And I find that that is that's where a lot of people are in their grieving process. And I think that it hurts even more when you can't get what you had. And when you're trying to figure out a way to grasp onto what you remember. How do you incorporate that? And with that being said, too, you guys have a business that incorporates Evangeline. Talk to me about this.
Yep, we recently started a new venture that has helped us quite a bit. It is a clothing brand. It's called Princess and Papa. Papa, because that's what my children call my husband, and Princess is after what we called Evangeline, Papa's Pretty Princess. And it is a clothing line dedicated to fathers and daughters and matching apparel. When we were doing our research, this is an area that's pretty underserved, and so it was a great opportunity and kind of another wink from Evangeline of, hey, this there's something here, there's potential here, and so we went live last November with our holiday collection, and everything is intentional. Whether it's dedication to her, right? So the first line, we named all of the dresses after the nicknames that we would call her. So there's like the Leanie dress, there's a sweet girl dress, all of the prints that you'll see, they're hand drawn by me, and they showcase the father-daughter relationship. So you'll see, for our holiday line, we had a snowman, so snow people, a big snowman and a little one. You can tell it was a little girl snowman. And so our prints, are dedicated to that relationship, to showcase that relationship. And so we're really excited. It has brought some hope to us, throughout this journey. We've also met quite a bit of families that have gone through what we've gone through, including pregnancy loss and miscarriages or stillbirth. And you don't know until you're in this space and you're in this dreaded club of how many grieving parents there are.
Yeah.
There are, you know that when you're not in this space from an outsider perspective, even before, we didn't know anything. Oh, yes, there's, miscarriages, but there are so many that people don't even speak about. And so for us, we also wanted, on top of honoring her with our clothing brand, we wanted a space for other parents to feel that it is okay to validate your babies. Your babies existed. They were here. And it's no different than, I love talking about Evangeline. It's no different than me talking about Otto. She's my child, and I love talking about her. And the more you talk, I feel the more I talk about her, it has helped me validate that she was here. It brings me comfort to know that there's, a legacy being built for her. Mm-hmm. And that's our hope also with this brand is, to showcase not only the love that a father-daughter bond has, but also the importance of knowing that and bring awareness that babies who still are not here did exist. They were real. And so to bring comfort to those grieving families as well is also very important.
You know, it's hard to continue to envision a year from now, 5 years from now. I find myself really living kind of day to day on some of these things. This has been one of the things that she and I have started to work together, where we're putting a vision beyond that day-to-day mentality. So I know it's definitely helping me in that component. Take control of me emotionally is just thinking about it. You know, like she should be 3 here in 12 days. You know, but what about 20 years from now? You know, what should we be doing then? And when you think about an infant, toddler, the amount of people they interact with, you know, the people that would remember them, it's significantly lower than an adult or teenager. And you know, I think there's so much beauty in what we're doing, in making sure that, you know, people will hear her name and will understand the impact she had in such a short time that she was here. And you know, I would just encourage anybody that's going through this unfathomable aspect of life that they never thought that they would have to. You know, it's very comforting hearing her name, having it live on beyond her earthly days here. And so, you know, don't stop doing that or creating environments where that can happen for you, because it's a very positive thing.
Yeah. And Brooks, also with that, you have embarked upon your coaching business too. Tell us a little bit about that and how you would expect for that impact to hit the community, the grieving community.
Yeah, so I don't know, it's probably 6-9 months after she passed. I got online and started looking around and researching for ways to help, you know, and I think that's one of the more remarkable things about this community is the majority of people, they want to help. You know, when you go through something so terrible, it's easy to shut down, you know, and not wish necessarily good things. But the amount of people that have gone through this and you see the compassion that they have, the optimism that they have about wanting to be there for others. And so it was really inspiring for me. And I found this group that offers a certification for coaching. And so I hope to continue to expand on that and be able to provide some grief coaching for men that are having to go through these situations. You know, I think it is important in being able to be relatable. You know, I've talked to 2 or 3 different counselors now, and they do a good job of walking through the steps, right? Like, how do you talk to somebody about grief? How do you acknowledge and validate their emotions and try and help them along? But it's for some people, it's kind of just words, you know, and I felt like some days going to therapy, it was just kind of just words. You know, there was the ability to truly understand what I was saying really wasn't there. It wasn't that the intent wasn't there, but you know, if anything that can come out of this, you know, as a positive thing in her name, to be able to do that for others and try and help them get to their next step, is something that I find encouraging and that I want to continue on.
Yeah. And I thank both of you guys for opening yourselves up and allowing yourself to turn your pain into purpose, to turn your ashes into beauty. No one would want any of this, right? And the unfortunate fact is that it happens. This is something that we all have to face. You know, this is something that my son is going to have to face one day, or, you know, God forbid, God forbid that part, right? And so we all live in a world that is fallen. We all live in a world of loss. And it takes for people like us in the grieving world that can come alongside others and help to guide them and to give them a little bit of the way, to help to give them a little bit of the light along the way, and to also present a space where there's no judgment. You know, we talk about things, of those feelings about, you know, the resentment of getting pregnant again after you losing a child. Like, you tell that to a person, on a regular person, they're gonna be like, what? How do you feel like that? But if you're grieving, and if you've been in that space, you understand that dialect, you understand that lingo, and you understand that it is a natural process that you're going through because of the affliction that you're having within your loss, you know? And so I just thank both of you guys for the willingness and finding a way to be creative with your grief, and finding a way to be creative with your loss, and sharing it with everyone. Yeah. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add?
No, I think, you know, we hope to continue, you know, building her legacy and raising awareness and being there for families that have gone through such a similar event or similar tragedy. And, you know, we welcome, you know, people, working with people like yourself, Carlise, and to your point, I think it's important for other grieving families to know that people like us exist. We understand what they're going through, to some capacity, right? Every situation is different, but the feelings of grieving we've gone through. And so, you know, this community is here to help, you know, others that have gone through something like this. And so I definitely encourage, you know, families who have gone through something like this not to get in an ugly space. Well, you can get there, just don't stay there. And staying there is the part that it's hard for you to get out. It's like you're in quicksand. If you stay there, it's harder for you to get out. And so resources like we provide, I think, definitely will help be that person to get you out of that quicksand.
All of their information will be at the bottom in the notes section for you to get in touch with them regarding the clothing line. And also, Brooks, if you have your contact information ready, when you're ready to present yourself to the world for your coaching, I would be more than happy to put you in my list of resources so that you're readily available to the people who need you. Yeah, so all the contact information will be there. I thank you guys for entering into the shadow box with me and trusting this to be your safe space and opening up to the world about what your experience is. And I thank you guys for sticking in there with each other. That is huge. Thank you so, so much. Everyone else, thank you for coming into the shadow box. And until next time, namaste.
Thanks, Carlise.
Sorry.
Everyone.